The Oakwood Estates HOA Christmas party always felt like stepping into a velvet-lined trap. Tucked behind perfectly manicured lawns and white picket fences that screamed, "We're all equal here." The clubhouse glowed with string lights that technically violated the no outdoor illumination past January 5th rule. But nobody dared mention it because President Karen Whitaker had approved it herself. She stood at the center of the room like a queen holding court, pearls gleaming under the chandeliers. Her smile the kind that could slice glass while sounding sweet as apple pie. Rules are what keep our community beautiful. Darlings, she cooed to a cluster of neighbors clutching eggnog. Without them, we descend into chaos. Emma Chin lingered near the appetizer table, nursing a plastic cup of sparkling cider and watching the show unfold. At 29, she blended in perfectly with her off-the-rack black dress and quiet nod whenever someone glanced her way. The board treated her like the neighborhood charity case, the one who somehow scraped by in her modest 3-bedroom on Maple Lane. They didn't know she'd bought it outright 5 years ago with her first real profits. They just saw the occasional delivery van that clogged the streets and the home office she ran for her online business selling home goods. Never mind that it was all digital. No customers ever visited. No signage. Nothing that actually broke the bylaws. Karen had still slapped her with three $250 fines last quarter alone for unauthorized commercial activity. Tonight was no different. Daniel Hargrove, the board vice president, and a smug Goldman Sachs transplant 2 doors down, held court near the fireplace. Another promotion this year. Folks, VP title, stock options, the works. That's what real success looks like. Karen beamed like he'd just cured cancer. Wonderful. Daniel, your family must be so proud. Unlike some people who think they can run a little internet shop from home and call it a career. Her eyes slid pointedly toward Emma. Jennifer Lang, the board treasurer and corporate lawyer from the next cul-de-sac, scrolled her phone on the leather couch. My engagement party's at the plaza next spring. Marcus's family knows the coordinator. Spectacular. Of course. Aunt Helen, the secretary who lived for finding people over grass height, nodded approvingly. You've earned it, dear. Education and real jobs pay off. Emma took a slow sip and said nothing. She'd learned years ago that arguing only fed the beast. Let them underestimate. Let them keep believing she was the struggling single woman, barely scraping by on scented candles and throw pillows. It had served her well so far. Karen drifted over, voice dripping honeyed venom. Emma, darling, come join us. Stop hiding by the snacks. Tell Richard about your little shop, the one with the candles. Still playing entrepreneur from that tiny house of yours. Uncle Richard, the board's enforcement chair and commercial real estate guy, chuckled. Do you even have a storefront? Or is it all from your garage? Real businesses happen in offices, not bedrooms. Emma replied evenly. It's an e-commerce platform. Home goods, furniture, kitchen items, fully online. Distribution in Jersey. No garage sales, no foot traffic. Karen's laugh tinkled like breaking crystal. Oh, sweetie, that's adorable. But our bylaws are crystal clear. No home-based businesses. We've been lenient because we care. But really, at your age, almost 30 and still hustling trinkets online, your father and I know. The board and I have been talking. There's a friend at MetLife looking for entry-level marketing. Real salary, real benefits, real path. Time to grow up. Mom, wait. Karen corrected herself with a fake sympathetic pat on Emma's arm. We love this community. We just want stability for everyone. Daniel jumped in, suit gleaming like his ego. What's your revenue? Emma? Seriously? Because I'm guessing it's barely covering your HOA dues and those fines. Jennifer and I are building real wealth here. You're selling pillows on the internet. Jennifer glanced up from her phone. Maybe an MBA? Marcus's firm recruits. I could get you info. Helen chimed. Education is never wasted. Might help you grasp real business instead of this hobby. Emma's phone buzzed discreetly in her clutch. CFO David, Q4 final. 487 million revenue. 34% growth. Congratulations, boss. She slipped it away without a flicker. The room pressed in with pitying stares. No one had ever asked to see her actual numbers. No one had visited her warehouse, met her 340 employees, or bothered to Google the company that quietly dominated the home goods logistics space. They decided she was the Oakwood failure the day she moved in, and nothing would change that. So she let them. Have you thought about selling? Richard pressed. Property values are up. Cash out before the market shifts. Karen sighed theatrically. We're not trying to be cruel. Emma, we just want what's best. This online thing isn't sustainable. What if trends change? Traditional retail is coming back. Emma kept her voice mild. I'll adapt. Daniel scoffed. Adapt? Real careers weather storms. Like mine at Goldman, Jennifer's firm, Richard's deals. Even cousin Michael at McKinsey, 200 grand straight out of MBA. Emma, check her watch. I should go. Early meeting tomorrow. Karen's eyebrows shot up. On December 26th? Your little shop doesn't even close for Christmas. Emma smiled thinly. E-commerce never closes. International clients don't celebrate. Daniel mimicked her tone. International clients. Right? Whatever helps you sleep at night in that tiny house. The goodbyes were pity hugs. The kind that whispered, poor Emma. Can't even take a holiday from her failing side hustle. As she stepped into the crisp December night, the clubhouse lights twinkled mockingly behind her. 27 streets of HOA perfection. Every blade of grass measured. Every flagpole regulated. Every dream quietly crushed under the weight of community standards. Emma's heels clicked down the sidewalk, breath fogging in the air. She needed the walk. The city skyscrapers glittered 12 blocks away. Her real world waiting. The streets were empty. Most neighbors tucked into their rule-compliant homes with their rule-compliant trees. Emma's phone rang halfway to Broadway. David, her CFO. Voice warm despite the hour. You were supposed to be with family, or whatever that HOA circus counts as. She laughed softly. It was exactly what I expected. They still think I'm running a candle shop out of my garage and dodging fines like a criminal. David chuckled. Most CEOs would have corrected that years ago. Most CEOs don't have a board like mine, she replied. Q4 beyond revenue? Strong. EBITDA, 94 million. Up 41%. New Jersey Center cut delivery times 30%. Retention sky high. Acquisition cost down. Employee satisfaction at record levels. Emma nodded to herself. Scaling issues? Usual inventory tweaks. Possible tariff bumps. Nothing we can't handle. David paused. Emma, 487 million at 29. Bootstrapped. No VC. Insane. It's solid, she said. Room to improve. She turned on a Broadway. Her building rising ahead. 43 floors of glass and steel. One of the newest in the financial district. The ground floor lobby glowed through massive windows, showcasing the modern art installation she'd commissioned last year. Night security Marcus looked up surprised as she entered. Miss Chin, didn't expect you tonight. Just grabbing files for tomorrow. Marcus, how was your Christmas? Quiet. Kids love the presents. Wife's happy I'll be home tomorrow. Good. Enjoy it. She pulled her executive badge, pressed it to the scanner. The system beeped. Then the automated voice rang through the marble lobby clear and proud. Welcome back. Chief Executive Officer. Access granted to executive level. Marcus's radio crackled. Wait, the CEO badge just activated. Is Miss Chin in the building? He glanced at her, eyes widening. Yeah, she just went up. The elevator doors began to close. Then they stopped. Someone had jammed the lobby call button. They slid open again to reveal Daniel. Coat half on, face stunned. Behind him, Jennifer climbed from a taxi. Phone to ear. Karen and Richard were crossing the street from the clubhouse, having clearly spotted her walking past and decided to check on her. What the hell? Daniel blurted. Did that announcement just say Emma pressed the hold button? Voice steady. Chief Executive Officer. Yes, it did. Jennifer reached the lobby first. CEO of what? Emma met their eyes. Homeowners Technologies. Integrated e-commerce and logistics platform for home goods. Furniture. Lifestyle products. 487 million revenue this year. 340 employees globally. Headquarters here. Distribution in New Jersey, California, Texas. International in Canada and UK. Silence crashed like a dropped ornament. Marcus stared at his screen, pulling up building info. Homelux occupies floors 38 through 41. Primary tenant. Emma Chin. He looked up. I'm so sorry. Miss Chin. We always just called you Emma. That's fine. Marcus. I prefer it. Karen had gone sheet white. Pearl suddenly looking cheap. This building you work here? This is Morrison Tower. One of the most expensive. Emma stayed calm. We don't just work here. We lease 4 floors. 60,000 square feet. Practical location, transit, infrastructure, room to grow. Richard stared at the badge. Then her. Homelux. I read about them in the journal last month. Disrupting traditional retail. That was us, Emma confirmed. Fortunate with growth. Daniel's voice cracked. 487 million? That's not a side hustle. That's not a hobby. That's a real company. Emma finished quietly. With real employees, real revenue, real profits. Yes. Jennifer frantically Googled on her phone. Forbes listed Homelux as one of the fastest growing private companies in America. Number 47. Valued at approximately $1.2 billion. Founder and CEO Emma Chin. Age 29. She looked up, shocked. You're worth over $900 million. On paper, Emma said. Valuation based on recent offers I've declined. Actual liquid net worth closer to $200 million. Most tied in equity. I pay myself a modest $300,000 salary and reinvest the rest. Karen whispered. $200 million. Give or take. The elevator had been holding for nearly 2 minutes. People were starting to notice from the street. The entire HOA board clustered in the lobby. Her standing in the open doors wearing the CEO badge that had just announced her title to the world. Emma glanced at her watch. I really do need to get upstairs. Documents for tomorrow's board meeting. Karen repeated faintly. Board meeting? 5 members, including myself. Quarterly, plus special sessions. Tomorrow's about European expansion and a potential €180 million acquisition of a German furniture manufacturer. Jennifer echoed. German furniture company? Should close by February if negotiations hold. Daniel sank onto a lobby bench. Face pale as the marble. I don't understand. How? When? Why didn't you tell us? Emma's tone stayed gentle, but edged with steel. Why would I? You'd all decided I was the neighborhood disappointment running a failing garage business. Violating every HOA rule you could invent. Karen protested, voice rising. Because we didn't know. We were trying to help. Emma corrected softly. Because you never asked. I invited the board to visit my office 3 years ago. You said you were too busy enforcing rules. I mentioned international expansion. You asked if I'd finally hired a real employee or was still packaging boxes myself. I told you we were moving headquarters. You suggested I was wasting money on overhead instead of paying my fines on time. Richard walked in then, summoned by frantic texts, stopping short at the scene. What's going on? Jennifer answered numbly. Emma is the CEO of a billion-dollar company. That's what's going on. Richard laughed once, then stopped when no one joined. No, she runs that little online shop. Emma repeated the numbers again. Voice carrying through the lobby. Homeowners Technologies, valued at $1.2 billion. 487 million revenue. Profitable since year 2. Exploring Europe and Asia Pacific. Her phone buzzed. David saw the security log. Bored there? Want backup? She typed back. I'm fine. See you tomorrow. I have to go, she told them. Documents to review. Karen reached out. Emma, wait. We need to talk about this. Do we? I've been trying to talk about my business for 5 years. Every holiday party, every board meeting, every fine notice you sent. You dismissed it. You mocked the delivery trucks as commercial eyesores. You told me to sell my house and get a real job before I dragged property values down. The elevator doors began to slide shut. Karen's voice cracked with the first hint of panic. Emma, please. We're sorry. We didn't understand. You didn't try to understand, Emma replied as the doors met. There's a difference. The car rose smoothly, numbers ticking past. Through glass walls the city spread below. Thousands of lights. Millions of lives. Her phone rang, Karen. Then Daniel. Jennifer. Richard. She silenced it and watched the skyline blur. At the 41st floor, the doors opened to the executive suite. Motion lights flickered on. The brushed steel logo glowed, a stylized house doubling as an abstract H. Her corner office overlooked the East River and Lower Manhattan. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. Brooklyn Bridge lit against the night. Statue of Liberty's torch in the harbor. Endless Manhattan grid. She had built this. Not HOA connections. Not Karen's approval. Not the board's pity. Just her. A laptop. A small Jersey warehouse. And the stubborn belief that people wanted better ways to furnish their homes. 5 years ago, she'd packaged orders herself, learning logistics from free YouTube videos while the board fined her for excessive vehicle traffic. Now she employed 340 people, turned down Amazon and Walmart offers, and Forbes called her one of e-commerce's brightest stars. All while the HOA Christmas party told her to get a real job. She worked 2 hours reviewing contracts, checking projections, noting questions for the German deal. The city glittered below. Somewhere out there, the board was probably still in the lobby, reeling. At midnight, she checked messages. Karen, Emma, please call. We need to talk. Daniel, this is insane. Call me. Jennifer, why didn't you tell us? We're your community. David's text, whatever happened. Remember, you don't owe them explanations. You built this yourself. She smiled and locked the phone. Documents ready. Q4 strong. Europe promising. Her real career exactly where she wanted it. She gathered her things and headed back down. The system announced again as she scanned her badge. Good night. Chief Executive Officer. Lobby empty. Marcus nodded. Good night. Miss Chin. You too. Marcus. Outside, the air bit sharp. She pulled her coat tighter and started the walk home. Her phone rang once more, Karen. This time she answered. Emma. Thank God. Where are you? We've been so worried. Heading home, Emma said calmly. We need to talk about this. About your company. About why you let us think. There's not much to discuss. Emma cut in. You asked if I had a real job. I do. You wanted to know if I was building a real career. I am. You told me to get serious about my future. I'm worth $200 million. I'd say I took your advice. Karen sputtered. That's not fair. If we'd known, you would have what? Emma asked, pausing at the corner for the light. Been proud? Taken me seriously? Stopped treating my work like a violation waiting to happen? Stopped finding me for trucks that never existed in your precious streets. The problem wasn't ignorance. Karen, the problem was you never asked. You decided I was the rule-breaking disappointment and built every meeting around reminding me. So, this is punishment? Karen's voice trembled with the fear of losing control. You let us humiliate you at every party just to prove a point? No, Emma said quietly. I let you believe what you wanted because correcting you was exhausting. Every achievement I mentioned, you minimized. Every expansion, you twisted into wasting money instead of paying dues. So I stopped mentioning them. I built my company, grew it quietly, and let you stay comfortable in your little kingdom of fines and fear. She reached her building, the doorman already opening the door. Evening. Miss Chin. Interesting Christmas? Very interesting, she replied with the first real smile of the night. The holidays will do that, he said knowingly. Up in her penthouse, she kicked off heels, poured wine, and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city glittered like her future, millions of lights, endless possibility. She'd conquered it through patience, strategy, and the quiet determination the board had mistaken for weakness. Her phone buzzed one last time. Daniel, for what it's worth, what you've built is incredible. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. She stared, then typed back, thank you. That actually means something. His reply came fast. Can we start over? Maybe I could visit your office sometime. See what you've really built. Emma smiled. Maybe after the holidays. After things settle. Because family, or the HOA version of it, could disappoint you, underestimate you, fine you into oblivion for years. But they were still there. And sometimes when they finally saw you, you gave them the chance. Not immediately, not on their terms, but eventually. After all, she built a $1.2 billion company from nothing. She could handle one complicated neighborhood. Though honestly, the billion-dollar empire had been easier. She raised her glass to her reflection. To the CEO they never saw coming. To the success they never believed possible. To the real job they told me to get while I was busy building an empire that now quietly controls the contracts, keeping their absurd rules alive. Merry Christmas to me, she whispered to the empty penthouse, to the lights, to the future she'd forged on her own terms. The board meeting was at 9 a.m. Sharp. By 8:45, the entire executive floor hummed with quiet efficiency. Emma sat at the head of the polished table, reviewing final notes on the German acquisition. David slid into the seat beside her, heard the lobby drama, made the security group chat. Want me to leak the Forbes article to the neighborhood newsletter? She laughed. No need. They'll find out soon enough. The doors opened and the team filed in, logistics leads, finance, expansion consultants. Numbers flew. Projected 30% growth in Europe. Synergy savings from the Holzwerk deal. Customer retention climbing another 4 points. Emma listened, asked sharp questions, approved the final terms. This was her world. Real stakes. Real impact. No petty fines for holiday. Wreaths hung an inch too low. Back in Oakwood Estates, the texts kept coming. Karen, the board would like a special meeting to discuss your situation. Emma ignored most. Answered only one from Richard. I'd like to see the actual bylaws enforcement logs for the last 5 years. My legal team will review them. The reply came fast, of course. Transparency is key. But the tone had shifted from condescending to cautious. By afternoon, the neighborhood grapevine had exploded. Neighbors who'd once nodded politely now waved with new respect. The delivery vans that used to draw side-eye now rolled through without a single complaint. Karen's perfect lawn still gleamed, but the woman behind the pearls looked smaller somehow, like the wind had been knocked out of her dictatorship. Emma walked the community path that evening, Christmas lights still twinkling defiantly past the official cutoff date. A young couple stopped her. We heard what happened. Thank you. Karen's been finding us for our kids' basketball hoop for months. Maybe now, Emma smiled. Rules should protect people, not power. Let's talk. She didn't gloat. That wasn't the point. The satisfaction came quieter, the slow realization spreading through Oakwood that the quiet resident they'd mocked for 5 years had been the one holding the real keys all along. Not through shouting or lawsuits, but through patience and undeniable proof. The board that had spent years enforcing community standards now faced the uncomfortable mirror of their own hypocrisy. Karen's Christmas party speech about unity rang hollow when the woman she belittled turned out to control the management contract that kept the entire HOA machine running. By New Year's, the changes were subtle but real. The no-home business rules suddenly had exceptions carved for digital operations after Emma's quiet suggestion at the first board meeting of the year. Fines for minor infractions dropped 60%. Karen still presided, but her voice carried less certainty. Her smiles tighter. Daniel offered to host the next neighborhood mixer at his place, perhaps to show he could adapt. Jennifer quietly dropped the NBA pitch and instead asked for a tour of the distribution center. Emma granted it, not out of revenge, but because real community started with real listening. She stood on her porch one crisp January morning, watching the sun rise over perfectly trimmed hedges that no longer felt like prison bars. Her phone showed the German deal closed 2 weeks early. Another $20 million in projected revenue. David texted, "Board wants to know if you consider a community sponsorship for the new park." "Your call." She typed back, "Only if they drop the ridiculous grass height ordinance. Tell them the CEO said so." The reply came with a laughing emoji. "Already done." "They're terrified of you now." Emma smiled and slipped the phone away. She hadn't set out to punish anyone. She'd simply refused to let their small-minded rules define her. In the end, the sweetest justice wasn't the shock on their faces in that lobby or the frantic apologies that followed. It was the slow, irreversible shift in power. The way the neighborhood that once tried to shrink her now expanded around the truth of who she really was. The HOA that prided itself on control had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the quietest resident is the one who quietly owns the game. Years later, when new families moved into Oakwood Estates, the old-timers would tell the story in hushed, half-amused tones. "Back in 2025, we had this Christmas party. Karen was at her peak, fining everyone for breathing wrong. Then this young woman we'd all written off as the neighborhood hobbyist, turns out she was running a billion-dollar empire right under our noses. Changed everything." They'd laugh, a little embarrassed, a little proud, and somewhere in the background Karen would still be there, pearls intact, but power forever clipped, smiling that same tight smile whenever Emma's name came up. Because in the end, the board that had spent 5 years telling her to get a real job learned the ultimate HOA truth. The realest jobs aren't the ones with titles handed down by committees. They're the ones built in silence while everyone else was busy enforcing rules they never bothered to question. Emma raised her morning coffee to the rising sun. The neighborhood looked exactly the same. Lawns perfect, fences white, lights finally taken down on schedule. But underneath, everything had changed. And that quiet, patient revenge tasted better than any eggnog ever could. The empire she'd built didn't just survive the HOA, it quietly, elegantly, and completely outgrew it. Merry Christmas indeed.